No one wakes up poor. No one decides to destroy their own life all at once. Modern ruin happens in silence, in small habits that seem harmless. Solomon understood this. He didn't notice sudden drops. He watched people slowly losing their way. Today, there is a modern habit that he would call slow destruction. And the most dangerous thing is that almost everyone does it without realizing it. Stay until the end, because the last point completely changes how you view your daily choices. Now I invite you to subscribe to the channel and leave your like, and comment here if you are following or will follow Solomon's wise advice to the letter and put it into practice in your life today. The most dangerous mistake never presents itself as a mistake. It disguises itself as routine. Something common. Something that everyone does. This is how the slow destruction begins. Solomon understood that the greatest downfalls did not stem from impulsive decisions, but from seemingly harmless habits. He observed intelligent, capable people full of potential, repeating small daily behaviors without ever questioning them, not because they were weak, but because the habit did not cause immediate pain. The problem is not the obvious excess. It's in comfortable mode. Today, this modern habit is spreading like something normal. It occupies small spaces of the day. A few minutes in the morning, empty intervals, moments before bed. It doesn't seem like stealing. It doesn't seem like a loss. But, little by little, it hijacks what you value most. Your attention, presence, and intention. Solomon observed that what doesn't hurt now teaches the mind to lower its guard. And when the guard falls, the mistake is repeated without resistance. The habit ceases to be a choice and becomes a reflex. You no longer decide. You only respond to the stimulus. This is where the danger lies. Because this habit requires no effort. It doesn't demand discipline. It doesn't require courage. On the contrary, it offers relief. Momentary silence. A feeling of rest. A break from reality. And everything that offers immediate relief usually exacts an invisible price later. Solomon understood that human beings confuse comfort with security. And when something seems comfortable, it is not questioned. It is accepted, incorporated, defended. The modern habit that seems too small to be a problem starts exactly like this. It doesn't ruin your life today. It just postpones important decisions. It pushes difficult choices to tomorrow. It occupies the space where reflection should take place. And what is not decided rots. Solomon observed that silent negligence is more destructive than conscious error, because those who err consciously still perceive the path. Those who neglect get lost without realizing it. This habit creates the illusion of normality. You look around and everyone is doing the same. You compare yourself and think, I'm not exaggerating. I'm not wrong. I'm not out of control. And this social comparison numbs any internal warning signs. The problem isn't what you do once. It's what you repeat without thinking. Solomon understood that repetition shapes character before it shapes the outcome. First you become scattered. Then your life begins to reflect that. But when the effect appears, the habit is already ingrained. And that's why this mistake is almost never corrected early. Because it doesn't cause shame. It doesn't cause a crisis. It doesn't cause immediate harm. It only consumes the time between one important decision and another. Solomon warned that time is not neutral. It either builds or it exacts its price. And every habit that occupies your time without purpose is silently making that choice for you. The modern habit that seems like just part of the routine isn't just filling your day. It's training your mind to avoid the effort of thinking, deciding, and choosing intentionally. And when intention disappears, life goes into automatic mode. This is where the slow destruction begins. Not with a big mistake, but with a habit that has never been questioned. And if you think this isn't serious yet, it's because you haven't reached the point where the cost becomes apparent. Everything that slowly destroys begins by offering something in return. No dangerous habit presents itself as a threat. He presents himself as the solution. Solomon understood that the human mind doesn't shy away from error. It shies away from discomfort. That's why anything that promises immediate relief easily gains access to our thoughts. It's not force. It's seduction. This modern habit works exactly like this. It emerges in moments of tiredness, frustration, or emptiness. When the mind needs a break, when reality weighs heavily. It doesn't require courage. It offers escape. Solomon observed that the first sign of danger is not excess, but emotional dependence. When you no longer resort to a habit for pleasure, but out of necessity, something has already changed within you. The mind begins to associate that behavior with a feeling of control. And here's the trick. Habit doesn't solve the problem. It only silences the discomfort. It doesn't organize life. It only postpones the pain. And all postponed pain returns bigger, more confusing, and harder to face. Solomon understood that the mind prefers short-term relief to long-term stability. It trades the future for the comfort of the present without realizing it. And this process doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small, repeated doses. Modern habits train the brain to seek quick stimulation, instant rewards, easy sensations, and the easier the stimulation, the lower the tolerance for real effort. The mind begins to reject anything that requires patience, focus, and depth. Solomon observed that what requires no effort does not build structure. It only occupies space. And over time, it occupies so much space that there is no energy left for what really matters. This habit creates a false sense of rest, but it doesn't restore function. It only distracts. The body seems to relax, but the mind remains restless. And the more restless it becomes, the more the habit is triggered. The cycle is formed. Discomfort, escape, brief relief, a bigger void. Solomon understood that cycles are not broken by force, but by awareness. Because as long as the mind believes that the habit is helping, it will defend it, even when it is already exacting a high price. The most dangerous thing is not the time spent. It's the mental pattern created. The mind begins to avoid silence, to avoid boredom, to avoid reflection, because in those empty spaces, difficult questions arise, and difficult questions demand decisions. Solomon observed that modern man is not afraid of failure. He is afraid of stopping and realizing where he is. This habit numbs your perception. It dulls your sensitivity. Little by little, you stop noticing how distracted, tired, and unproductive you are. Everything seems normal. Everything seems under control, until the results start to show otherwise. And when the results appear, the mind does what it always does, seeking more escape. Solomon warned that the greatest deception of the mind is believing that fleeing from discomfort is the same as resolving it. It is not. Fleeing only prolongs it. This modern habit doesn't destroy your life all at once. It weakens your ability to cope with it. And when that ability diminishes, any problem seems bigger than it really is. This is how slow destruction takes hold. Not because of the pain, but for the illusion of relief. Nothing is ever truly lost. Everything wears out little by little. Solomon understood that time does not punish immediately. It observes. It accumulates. It records every small, repeated choice made without attention. And then, at the right moment, it reveals the result. The modern habit that seems harmless takes its toll silently. There is no warning, no sudden crisis. There is only a slight daily weakening that almost no one notices. A little less focus, a little less clarity, a little less energy to decide. Solomon observed that true loss doesn't occur when something disappears, but when it stops growing. And this habit does exactly that. It doesn't directly destroy your life. It prevents its evolution. Over time, the mind, accustomed to rapid stimulation, begins to reject depth. Long reading becomes tiring. Continuous thought is bothersome. Planning seems too burdensome. Anything that requires construction is avoided. Solomon understood that what is not nourished daily weakens. Discipline weakens. Ambition weakens. Long-term vision weakens. And when these inner strengths diminish, life enters survival mode. The impact first appears in small decisions. You start choosing what's easiest, what's quickest, what's most comfortable, not because it's better, but because it requires less mental energy. And these small choices, accumulated, shape your destiny. Solomon observed that no one misses great opportunities due to a lack of ability, but rather due to a lack of readiness. And readiness is born from the habit of being present, attentive, and aware. When this is lost, opportunities pass unnoticed. Modern habits also erode our relationship with time. The days seem full, yet empty. Busy, yet unproductive. Fatigue increases, even without real effort, because the mind lives fragmented, jumping from stimulus to stimulus, without accomplishing anything. Solomon understood that a fragmented mind generates a fragmented life. Projects begin and are never finished. Ideas arise and are lost. Plans are postponed indefinitely. And the accumulation of unfinished things weighs more than work well done. As the months go by, the effect becomes more profound. Confidence diminishes. Self-esteem drops for no apparent reason. The feeling of always being behind in life arises. And the more this feeling grows, the more the habit is used as an escape. Solomon observed that the greatest cost of a mistake is not what it takes from you, but what it prevents you from becoming. Because while you run away, time moves on. This habit doesn't just destroy external results. It corrodes inner peace. The mind never truly rests. It's always stimulated, but never satisfied. And a dissatisfied mind makes bad decisions. Solomon warned that wealth, stability, and peace require constancy. And constancy does not survive in a scattered mind. Without constancy, everything becomes wasted effort. This is where many wonder when they got lost. There wasn't a specific event. There wasn't a defining mistake. There was only the daily repetition of something that seemed too small to matter, but mattered. Solomon understood that time is not an enemy. It is a mirror. It merely shows, belatedly, what was done in silence. And when the mirror finally reveals the truth, the cost is already in place. If it were easy to break, this habit wouldn't have become normal. The problem was never the information. It was attachment. Solomon understood that human beings rarely cling to what destroys them out of ignorance. They cling because it fulfills an unresolved emotional need. And as long as that need exists, the habit will be defended. The first reason is simple: everyone does it. When a behavior is socially accepted, it loses its perceived wrongness. It becomes part of the landscape. You look around and see productive, successful, busy people practicing the same habit. So the mind concludes that it can't be that serious. Solomon observed that social comparison is a powerful anesthetic. It silences critical thinking. If everyone does it, no one feels responsible for questioning. The second reason is the illusion of control. The silent phrase that repeats itself in your mind is always the same: I can stop whenever I want. This idea brings comfort. It maintains the feeling of control. But in practice, habit has already decided for you several times before that phrase even appears. Solomon understood that the true sign of loss of control is not excess, but constant justification. When the mind needs to explain a habit, it's because it already occupies too much space. The third reason is more profound: the fear of silence. This habit doesn't just take up time. It occupies the space where difficult thoughts would otherwise arise. In silence, uncomfortable questions appear. Am I on the right track? Am I using my time well? Am I postponing what I know I need to face? Solomon observed that man flees not from hard work, but from honest self-analysis. Because looking inward demands responsibility, and responsibility demands change. The fourth reason is accumulated fatigue. A fragmented mind lives in a state of constant exhaustion. And when someone is tired, they don't seek improvement. They seek relief. This habit presents itself exactly as that: easy rest, without demands. Solomon understood that constant fatigue doesn't come from exertion, but from a lack of direction. When you don't know exactly where you're going, any distraction seems valid. There's also a silent factor. Habit creates identity. It becomes part of who you are, of your way of life, of your routine. Questioning it seems like questioning yourself, and the mind resists that. Solomon observed the human beings protect what defines them, even when it limits them, because changing a habit requires changing the internal narrative. And there's one last reason, perhaps the most dangerous. Habit works, at least for a while. It provides relief. It distracts. It helps to endure difficult days. And anything that helps to endure tends to be preserved, even when it starts to exact a high price. Solomon warned that what works today may destroy tomorrow. The immediate effect is deceiving. The cost is always late. That's why almost no one can quit on their own. It's not a lack of strength. It's a lack of awareness of the role the habit has come to play. As long as it's seen as an ally, it will never be abandoned. But the moment you understand that it doesn't solve the problem, it only postpones it, something changes. The mind stops defending it. The attachment begins to weaken. And it is at this point that the possibility of a rupture arises. Because every habit loses its power when it ceases to be unconscious. Solomon did not fight against habits. He corrected directions. He understood that trying to eliminate a behavior without adjusting the way of thinking only creates resistance. The mind defends itself. The mistake returns in another form. That is why Solomon observed the direction first, not the detail. The principle he applied was simple, yet profound. Everything that consumes your attention without building intention is, little by little, choosing your future for you. It's not about forcibly cutting off stimuli. It's about restoring awareness to choices. Solomon understood that human beings don't change when they blame themselves. They change when they see, when they clearly perceive what they are losing. Because no one abandons something valuable for something empty after seeing the difference. The antidote to slow destruction is not radical. It is silent. It begins with the decision to reduce, not eliminate. To lessen the noise in order to hear one's own mind again. To create small spaces of intention in the day where before there was only distraction. Solomon observed that those who do not govern their own time end up being governed by external stimuli. And this doesn't happen all at once. Regaining control doesn't necessarily have to happen overnight either. The principle is to choose less, with more presence. Fewer impulses, fewer automated responses, less useless time wasting, and more awareness in every simple choice. Solomon understood that wisdom doesn't require grand, visible changes. It works behind the scenes. It adjusts the course 1 degree at a time. And over time, that small adjustment completely changes destiny. Modern habits lose their power when they cease to be the first resort. When faced with discomfort, you learn to pause before fleeing. Not to suffer, but to understand what the discomfort is asking for. Solomon observed that all anxiety carries a warning. But those who are constantly distracted never listen. Reclaiming intention doesn't mean living in rigidity. It means consciously choosing where to focus your attention, energy, and time. Because everything that receives attention grows, including mistakes. Solomon warned that wealth, stability, and peace are built through small choices made consistently. Not through bursts of effort, not through dramatic decisions, but through maintaining the right direction over time. When you reduce the distracting habit, something curious happens. The mind begins to clear. Patience increases. The ability to decide improves. Not because life has become easier, but because you've stopped running away from it. It is at this point that slow destruction loses ground, because it depends on unconsciousness to exist. When there is presence, it weakens. Solomon understood that it is not the modern world that destroys. It is the lack of discernment in living within it. Closing. If this video made you realize something you've been ignoring, don't close it now. Take this reflection with you today. Observe your habits, not to judge yourself, but to regain control. If this message resonated with you, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for future videos. The goal here has never been to make more money. Solomon didn't teach how to earn more. He taught how to make fewer mistakes.